Let's go back in time, way back to a small town tucked in the hills of West Virginia in the early 1920s. It's peaceful, quiet, the kind of place where people know each other's names and life moves just a little slower. But in one little house, there lived a girl who was moving much faster than the world around her. Her name was Katherine, and she was. Well, let's just say she didn't see numbers the way the rest of us do. For Katherine, numbers weren't scary. They were friends. At just 4 years old, Katherine was already counting everything. The steps on the porch, the stars in the sky. She would look at street signs and do math problems in her head for fun. Most kids play hide and seek. Katherine, she played. Let's add these fractions. By 10 years old, she was already in high school. Yep. While most kids were still learning their times tables, Katherine was diving into algebra and geometry. And when she was just 15, she entered college. People would say,
"She's too young to understand all this math."
but Katherine would just smile and reply.
Math understands me.
Professors couldn't keep up. She asked smart questions. She corrected mistakes on the board. And she always wanted to know more. She once said,
I love to count. Everything.
In college, Katherine studied math, physics, and astronomy subjects where few women, especially Black women, were welcome at the time. But she didn't let that stop her. She wasn't trying to be the first or the best. She just really loved solving problems. And when someone once asked her what she wanted to do with her life, she said,
I'm going to do something great with math.
And guess what? She did. You know, not every hero wears a cape. Some wear glasses. Some carry pencils. And some, like Katherine Johnson, changed the world with numbers. But it all started right here with a little girl who counted everything. Who didn't see math as a chore, but as a language. And most of all, who believed she could do anything, even if the world wasn't ready for her yet. So the next time you see numbers on a page, think of Katherine. Maybe math isn't scary. Maybe it's just waiting to become your friend too. In 1953, a smart young mother walked through the doors of a government building in Virginia. She wore a simple blouse, a long skirt, and carried a pencil in her hand. Her name was Katherine Johnson, and she was about to step into a world where very few women, and even fewer Black women, were allowed to shine. But trust me, she was ready. Back then, they called them computers, not machines, people. Women. They sat in long rows at desks, doing the math that powered America's space dreams. Most of them were women of color. Brilliant, precise, invisible. But Katherine? She wasn't invisible for long. She had a gift. Numbers spoke to her like an old friend. She double-checked flight paths, corrected mistakes, and started doing math that made even the top engineers pause and say,
Wait, who did this?
The answer was always the same.
Katherine.
She was moved to the Flight Research Division, a place where women rarely went. She asked questions. She spoke up. And when someone tried to exclude her because she was a woman or because she was Black, she calmly said,
Is there a law against it?
There wasn't. So she stayed. And she worked. And she soared. Fast forward to 1962. The United States was about to send John Glenn into space, the first American to orbit the Earth. They had the technology. They had the spacecraft. They had the computer. But John Glenn had a request, a very specific one.
Get the girl to check the numbers. If she says they're good, I'll go.
The girl was Katherine Johnson. She wasn't just checking numbers. She was double-checking the computer's work by hand. For hours, she calculated the orbital path.
It's gone.
And just like that, Glenn went up. He orbited the Earth 3 times. He came back safely. And Katherine's math flew with him, all the way around the world. She didn't ask for fame. She didn't ask for credit. She just did the work brilliantly, over and over again. But history remembers, because John Glenn, one of the most famous astronauts in history, would not leave Earth until Katherine Johnson said it was okay. She wasn't just a computer. She was a mathematician. a space pioneer, a legend, and above all, a woman who proved that brains, courage, and quiet brilliance can move rockets and hearts into orbit. In a time when GPS and the internet had no room for mistakes. In 1969, as Apollo 11, the mission to land the first humans on the moon in human history was being prepared. They needed someone to do the math. And who did they turn to? That's right, Katherine Johnson. Her task on Apollo 11 was orbital calculations, the path to the moon, the safe landing, and most importantly, the path back to Earth. She calculated when the rocket should launch, how gravity would affect the flight, and where the astronauts would land upon returning. If her calculations had been even slightly off, they could have missed the moon and, worse, missed Earth. On July 20, 1969, the world held its breath to watch Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin take their first steps on the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
For years, very few knew her name. Then, in 2016, the world finally learned her story. A movie told the real-life stories of the brilliant Black women who helped lead us into space. And from that moment on, people began saying her name. Girls wanted to be like her. In 2015, at the age of 97, Katherine Johnson received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from the President. And in 2020, at the age of 101, Katherine Johnson peacefully passed away. Katherine Johnson never went to space. She never wore a spacesuit, but she made that journey possible. With a pencil, a chalkboard, and a belief that math could move mountains and rockets. So the next time you look up at the moon, remember, a quiet but extraordinary mind and a bigger heart guided us there. Her name is Katherine Johnson, and she wrote history in numbers.